All right, so we're going to start it. We're going to have 2 panels this morning. Actually, we thought that was easier than having 8 women lined up across the stage. So we're going to start panel 1, and then we'll have another set come up here briefly. And I just want to echo what has already been said, just our gratitude for y'all being willing to be with us today, to sit up on stage, to give us a chance to get to know you, to know how better to support you, and then also just to celebrate what the Lord is doing in your lives and around the world. I was thinking of my boys. We took a big trip out west, and the scenery was just glorious. And of course, they had their phones, and they were doing this. And I kept saying, look up, look around, look around. And that's what Missions Conference is to me. Just sometimes I just get locked into my life, and it's look up, look around, celebrate the beauty of God and what he's doing. And so we appreciate y'all being here to help us do that today. We're going to start with our first things first question. So we have a little podcast that we do through our women's ministry, and we always start it off by saying a first things first question. First at first. So that's what it's going to be, a little first things first question. They're going to give you an introduction, a brief bio, explain your ministry, then answer the first things first question. Okay, and we'll go down the line. So first things first question is, what is the first thing you look at on your phone when you get up in the morning? And Ashley, you get kick us off. And you have to be honest.
Okay.
Okay. As honest as you can be.
Perfect. Yes, don't
In
worry.
a church. Just kidding.
My name is Ashley Belknap, and I am the Executive Director of Engaging Disability with the Gospel, which is the denominational disability ministry for the PCA. So we serve all 1,932 PCA churches in the work of disability ministry, plus our reach has really even grown beyond the PCA. We serve a lot of Reformed churches, and even some that are outside of the Reformed circles. But what we do is we come alongside each church and we try to get to know your context and your people and the needs that are present from your nursery all the way up through seniors. So one of the things that I do the most in working with churches is try to expand your definition of what you think of when you hear the word disability. A lot of people have a really defined idea of what that is. And there's so many more unique needs that are present in a congregation, regardless of size, than just the ones that maybe come to mind or that the folks that you know that actually have diagnoses. Our job is to try to help you as a congregation disciple and enfold 100% of the people that you have in your congregation, instead of maybe the 93 or 94% that have independent and more put together skills. So whether we're working on things that are true skill building, with a lot of our kids, we may help them learn to do skills that they may not have yet, such as sitting and listening and attending to tasks. We build those over time. We work to try to get our teens into youth group. We try to get our young adults plugged in with their peers. We look to make sure everybody's in the worship service. So ordinary means of grace really is our motto. We look at the worship service, our friends in worship. We look at the sacraments. Have we had professions of faith? Are we growing? And are we availing ourselves to prayer? And then from there, we move out into ministry areas. So I've worked with this church for so long, with hand in hand, and with Susie and Bree, and just so thankful for the work that you all do, and really hope that I get to make what you're doing stronger. In terms of the first question, so I thought about this a lot, probably overthought it. Thought, how do I link this to what I do? And then I realized there was an obvious link to what I do. So when I wake up in the morning, the first thing I do is I check my schedule. I work with so many churches that it's hard to keep up with who is next in the queue for Zoom calls and what's on the docket for the day. So I check my schedule a lot, like we encourage our kids, teens, and adults impacted by disability to have visual schedules so that they know what's coming. I really like my own visual schedule to know what's coming. And then I use that as the churches that I pray for that day. So it does help me get focused and really take it to the Lord, but the selfish part is I like to know what my day is holding. So that's what I do.
Very good. Thank you. Do you get out of the bed before you look at the schedule? Or are you still in the bed?
So this is really getting into it. So I am definitely still in the bed when I check the schedule. We're just going to be 100% honest because
it determines what you're going to wear.
It determines everything. Yeah. Who are we going to spend time with? And yeah.
Okay. All right. Naya.
Hello. My name is Naya Bird. I work with Campus Outreach in Lusaka, Zambia at Kobata Baptist Church. Our ministry is university focused, so we focus on university students. If you're familiar, I know there's a campus outreach here. So if you're familiar with our motto, is building laborers on the campus for the lost world. So we're focused on building up young Christian leaders on the campus to also go out eventually and build other laborers, either it's in the workforce or in ministry or in whatever they do. And we focus mainly a lot on discipleship and evangelism. So discipleship is the core of what we do, so that these young students can learn how to live a life for Christ and own it for themselves and live that life in whatever they do, in whatever career they decide to go into. And right now, I'm mostly just an at-home mom, but I do a lot of focus with home ministry of bringing the students into my home and connecting with them in that way. First thing I do in the morning is I have an alarm. I have so many alarms on my phone. So my alarm wakes me up, but I started recently having the Bible app does verse of the day. So the verse of the day is the first thing that I see on my phone. So I click on the verse of the day. I read that. I'm still in bed.
Good.
And then after that, I look at the weather. I just have this thing about the weather. I just want to know what's it going to be like outside? How do I need to dress? I just really enjoy the weather. So those are the first two things I do in the morning.
All right, before you pass it off real quick, I'm also a weather girl. I'm 100% with you on that. And then how many children do you have?
So,
and what are their ages?
Yes, we have 4 children and one on the way. So our oldest is Tandiwe, it's a girl, and she's 14. And then Naledi, she's 12. And then Tumelo, he's 10. And then Harper, and she's 4. And then right now we're just calling this one Little B. Oh. So it's a girl.
Okay.
So that's our
When
family.
are you due?
I'm due April 23rd.
Okay.
Yeah, very soon.
Even more special you came to be with us right now.
I'm so thankful to be here. It's been about 10 years since I've been able to travel back with my husband to come. So First Pres has been a blessing to us.
Great. We're glad.
Oh, you got it.
Thank you.
All right,
Check,
Julia.
check. Okay. My name is Julia Cook. I'm a missionary with Mission to the World, and my husband and I are on a team called Workplace Ministries. And so what we do is look for ways to extend the reach of the gospel by using business and professional skills and vocations. And so we will partner with MTW's international missionary teams to meet needs such as creating avenues for gospel presence in restricted access locations. So many places where a religious visa is not, a way to get into a country, but there are missionaries that want to go. We can use creative means of profession and business to create inroads there. Something else that we do is work on self-sustaining and multiplying church plants. So we train indigenous pastors in small business development so that as they go to reach their countrymen, they can start a business that will sustain their church planting efforts. And then kind of our other facet is vocational evangelism and discipleship. So teaching believers that their workplace is something God has given them to make intentional relationships for the gospel. So outreach can be so much greater if believers will use those 90,000 hours that they typically spend in the workplace for Christ. So that's what we do. And I look at the weather as well, Nyla. That was going to be, the weather is my first thing I look at on my phone when I'm getting ready normally. And then I've been using the Lectio 365 app for prayer that some women in my Sunday school recommended, and I'm really thankful they have recommended that to me.
Julia, real quick, the workplace ministries you're working with, are they international? Are they national? Are they both? Just curious.
So I guess I would say both. So when people ask where are we going, I normally say a little bit of everywhere because we partner with the various international church plants that MTW has. They relay needs to us that they feel would extend the reach of the gospel. So our team is based in the U.S. but frequently travels both domestically and internationally.
Okay. Got it. All right, Joy.
Hi, my name is Joy Worrell. For those of you who don't know me, my husband and I have been at First Pres for about 10 years now. We live over in Aiken. across the river, and I'm here for Harvest USA. I've been on staff with Harvest for about 3.5 years now. Harvest was started about 40 years ago by a man named John Freeman, and he was attending Westminster Seminary in Philadelphia and was thinking that he'd likely go back to Tennessee. He was a Tennessee boy, and pastor a church there in the Carolinas somewhere. And God used Tim Keller and a number of men on the session at 10th Presbyterian in Philadelphia to encourage John to start Harvest because of an unreached people group right there on their doorstep. And that was, at that time, primarily gay men, and many of them afflicted with AIDS. And so John started Harvest, and pretty soon Harvest began to minister to women who had sexual struggles, and then very quickly to parents of sexual strugglers and family members. And so that's what I do at Harvest. I work remotely, and I do counseling and facilitate parent groups or family member groups. We have a lot of mainly parents who reach out to us whose children identify as LGBTQ+. And then we also have grandparents who often reach out to us, as well as even siblings. We've been getting a lot of siblings lately who are reaching out for help. And so it's just been a real blessing to be part of Harvest. And thank you for including me. As far as what I look at on my phone, I don't sleep with my phone by the bed, so it's after I get up, and I'm a lot like y'all. I look at the weather, so I know how to dress, and I look at my schedule, so I know the Zoom calls for that day.
All right, y'all all have something in common. The other thing the weather app will tell you is if your air quality is dangerously low, which it's been saying recently. Is anybody picking up on that? So welcome to the Augusta. All right, so we're going to go into a couple questions that get a little bit deeper into some of the things that y'all do. So Ashley, you're going to tell us, let's see if I can make sure I can read this question correctly, but how have you seen churches, as you've worked with them, when they're learning to engage disabilities with the gospel of Christ, how do you see the church itself becoming more beautifully and truly the body of Christ?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I think one of the things that I feel like I work on the most with every church is the concept of loving well. And this day and age, we all go so fast. No one in our PCA churches are ever going to try to not love well. But this concept of how do we love someone that maybe doesn't share the same interests that we share or is in a different place skill level wise? How do I build a relationship, a genuine relationship with that person? And how do I take interest in their life? So we talk a lot about the different parts of the body. 1 Corinthians 12, very familiar passage. Paul's always saying there, that we need the hand, we need the feet, we need the eyes, we need the ears. And he gets down to the heart of the verse, which is that the weaker members are the indispensable members of the body of Christ. And over the last 9 years, I've really gotten to see how that works out practically. And one of the ways that I see it the most is that when we are relating to one another and we're kind of widening that understanding of how to love each other with a little more grace, a little more patience, a little bit slower, maybe a little bit deeper, maybe taking interest in someone as they are instead of who you want them to be or who you want them to become. When we do that without really requesting anything back, we really are imaging the love of Christ, right? He laid his life down for us without anything that we could do in return. And so when we start doing that, we start looking more like Christ and we start being more of those hands and feet for him across the congregation. It's just a really wonderful way to watch how we need one another. That I usually say that the indispensable part of a flashlight, who in here doesn't have a closet full of flashlights in case the power goes out, right? But when you go and you get that flashlight in the time of need and you go to turn it on, if the indispensable part isn't in there, which is the batteries, it doesn't really help you a whole lot. The light doesn't shine the way that it should. It looks like a flashlight, but it doesn't work like a flashlight. And so while it'd be really easy to just say, all the people with all the great skills and abilities, let's all join together and make church strong, the upside downness of the kingdom, what Paul knew and what Jesus preached the whole time he was here is that we need each other so that we really do learn to lay aside our agendas and our priorities, and we learn to love like he loved, and that makes us more ready for heaven. So I love what I get to do. It changes the whole church, and people are always really afraid that it will change it for the wrong ways, and it just changes it for all the wonderful ways.
And we've experienced that here through Hand in Hand. Even just my boys working in Hand, seeing them grow in ways that are wonderful that they wouldn't grow in otherwise. I've been really grateful. Yeah. All right, Naya, you're next. And you get to talk to us about kiddos. So your question was, what are some of the benefits and challenges of raising kids cross-culturally? And I'm adding this little addendum. I don't think it'll be too much. But we've got some cross-cultural kiddos in our church as well and in our schools. And what are some of the ways that you would suggest we love on them well? Okay.
I have mine written down. That's okay. So I have two things. One of the benefits that we've experienced with our children is the worldwide exposure to other cultures and people groups, and the hands-on experience with languages, people, food, travel, etc. And then one of the biggest ones that I think that has really impacted our family is learning how to adapt to change. Those are really good benefits, because whenever we travel from one country to the next, they're just ready. It can be difficult and it can be hard, but it's already set in their heart to know how to just adapt to things around them, not always being the same. And so those are some of the top benefits that we found. And then some of the challenges, kind of like the same, similar, is there can be a language barrier. You can often feel like you're the only one in the room who's different. We've experienced that with our children. Also, learning the cultural norms, knowing what's right to do sometimes, and not really knowing where you fit in. Is it okay for me? For my children, it's like, am I an American? Am I African? I'm not sure where I belong. I'm somewhere stuck in the middle. And then figuring out how to merge those two together, knowing that you can be both in some way. So those are some of the challenges that we face with our children. And then just learning to say goodbye. Raising children cross-cultural, especially on teams, your team becomes your family. The students become their family, their aunties, their uncles. And those people are not always going to be there. And so people leave a lot. And learning how to handle that type of grief in their heart at a very young age is a huge challenge. But we continue to work through it by creating new and different ways of how to say goodbye, by talking about it, by staying connected with one another. And so learning to say goodbye is a huge challenge for the children. So those are some of the benefits and the challenges.
That's helpful. I'm kind of putting you on the spot, but can you tell us, like, as we are engaging with kids that come back and reacclimate into our schools or into the church, what are some of the ways that we can best love on them?
I think one of the biggest ways is to engage them about who they are. I think cross-cultural children, they call them TCK kids. I'm actually one of them myself. You typically talk in events and not time. Your life is scheduled through certain events. Well, when we lived here, we did this. And when we lived there, we talk like this. And it can often feel like you're in a peer group, you kind of know it all, you're bragging. but you're actually just trying to share your shared experience of your life with them. So I think encouraging maybe the students around them to ask them questions more than them being the one to be the initiator. So I think my children find it difficult sometimes when they feel like, well, no one really wants to know me because they don't ask me questions. And so a lot of cross-cultural kids are used to engaging people through questions because they see their parents do that a lot. And they're often around older groups. And so in order to kind of understand and know people, they seek to know them through questions. And so I think helping children to engage one another by getting to know each other through probing, like questions to get to know.
Yeah, that's helpful for all of us for me to think, can I be curious of something that's outside of normal to me? Do I just expect everybody else to adapt to my normal instead of being curious about somebody else? Yeah, thank you. All right, Julia, you're next, and this ministry endeavor is somewhat new to y'all, so tell us what you're most excited about.
There's so many things, but what I'm really excited about is mobilizing the American church to use their God-given vocational skills to extend the reach of the gospel. So 99% of the church body works in what we would consider the secular sphere, not in ministry. And so that is a powerful statistic of people that can be mobilized for Christ. And so we desire that believers would recognize their work as sacred, regardless of if it's a ministry work or not. And to ask God the question, how can I use the talents and experiences you've given me to shine light into the darkness where Christ is not known? And so Brian and I, as we start in workplace ministries, will be spearheading an endeavor called the Workplace Resource Network. And so believers can answer that question through participation in that network by partnering with MTW's international church teams. So what that could look like is someone whose career is in marketing, for example, could join a small trip that travels to West Africa to help train business development for those pastors I mentioned earlier who are looking to sustain their church planting ministry through work. It could look like a business owner from the States virtually consulting with a church elder in an East Asian church plant to help them open a cafe that would outreach to their Buddhist neighbors. So the opportunities are as diverse as the countries they come from, and I'm really excited to see how God can use our work.
Well, and just very briefly, obviously you come from the workplace, and what is it in that realm do you think that's given you a personal excitement to extend that idea of ministering in the workplace?
So my work is as a physical therapist. I work at the Children's Hospital down the street, and I was discipled through my career entering physical therapy through medical campus outreach. And that is what Brian and I have been heavily involved with from the time we came to Augusta until recently. And it was discipled into me through other women and through leaders, that this was a place to engage the lost, especially in medicine, who might be at a very dark time of their life with the hope of Christ. And so just the privilege of getting to pray with patients and their families, or sing hymns, or Jesus Loves Me to children whose parents aren't present with them, has been a great gift. And also with coworkers. So, those 90,000 hours that you spend with people, sometimes your coworkers are the ones you're with the most and that you can build deeper relationships with. So engaging in gospel conversations, that leads to further open doors. It's a blessing.
That's great that you get to help pass that on. All right, Joy, your question is, what is the hardest part about your role on staff with Harvest, and what is the most rewarding? Most are hard, but
Yeah. So the hardest part is the stories that I hear. Like I told you, we mostly get reached out to by parents of children who have suddenly adopted an LGBTQ plus identity. And the stories we hear of many of these young people now, a large portion of them are identifying as trans. And so the parents that reach out to us, these are godly Christian couples who sought to raise their children in the fear and admonition of the Lord. And they're just shocked. They're devastated. They say it's the hardest thing they've ever experienced, having a child go through this. And then with the trans identity, there's all other kinds of complications. Many of them begin taking hormones. They begin having surgeries. They issue ultimatums to their parents, such as, if you don't call me by my new name or you don't use my new pronouns, then, you're toxic and I can't have anything to do with you. And so you can imagine. And we've gotten calls from missionaries overseas whose kids are back in the States and are going through this and trying to figure out how to navigate it. I remember one story with a missionary family. The grandparents actually reached out to us and made the appointment for them and their son. And his son was married to a woman, and she had invited a third person into their marriage, what's called, I understand, a throuple. And so they were navigating those waters and desperately seeking how to love this child and at the same time be faithful to God and to the scriptures. So those are the hardest things I do. But then the most rewarding is actually getting to walk alongside those families in this deepest, darkest time in their lives, and to seek to comfort them from God's truth and to bolster them up with courage and hope for the future, and for the fact that God is in this for good, even though it doesn't certainly look like it. And I wanted to share something, and I just got this morning. I didn't plan it, but I got this email from a lady, a mom that reached out to us, and I have a colleague, Joan McConnell, who's also on staff with Harvest. She's our director of parents and family ministry, and we work closely together. We do all of our Zoom calls together with these parents. And this mom reached out to us and met with us yesterday, and she has a son who's adopted a trans identity. She and her husband and their daughter, his sister, were the last to find out, and he's already scheduled a surgery to have his face altered and redone to look more feminine. And this mom is absolutely devastated, as you can imagine. And she and her husband have been trying to talk to their son, and he's resolute to continue in this. And so she was just desperate for help and felt so alone, with nowhere to turn, and was so thankful to meet with us. And she sent us this email this morning, and to preserve confidentiality, I'm not going to use the name of the son, which she mentions. I'm just going to call him Ben for the purposes of reading this. This is pretty short, but I wanted to share this with y'all. She just says, I feel that my best way to thank you is to send along this morning's prayer. This is a prayer she wrote out. Jesus, thank you for Joy and Joan. As I do my devotions and prayers this morning, I feel their spirit-fueled love and support. I feel strengthened by their hope and wisdom. I am thankful for the tools they have provided to me, the knowledge of what I can do, the prayers that I can pray for Ben, and the understanding of God's role for me as Ben's mother as I step back and trust you are working. Bless Joy and Joan, fill them with your Holy Spirit, and give them health, strength, faith, hope, and wisdom as they so well carry out your call of helping those of us lost in confusion and helplessness over this issue. Thank you, Jesus, that I feel surrounded by their support as I pray for you to bring your perfect helpers alongside Ben. Thank you for the hope I have this morning because of Joy and Joan, and for your miraculous timing that I could speak with them yesterday. Amen. And that says it all pretty well, how this is so rewarding. So stepping into these hard places is also such a blessing.
Yeah. And we're grateful that you step into those hard places here at First Pres. So if you're out there and that resonates with you, Joy's somebody that you can talk to. So keep that in mind.
I would just add on to that, Amber, that so many of the parents that reach out to us, a number of them are from PCA churches all around the country. But one of the first heartbreaking things we hear is that they feel so alone and isolated, and they don't know who to talk to in their church. and maybe their church doesn't offer any help in this area. So I'm just so thankful that we are seeking to step into this. We have a G3 group now that's a support group for parents and siblings here at First Pres, but also we need to be a welcoming community for these parents and family members and these sexual strugglers as well.
Absolutely. Thank you, Joy. All right, ladies, thank you. You are dismissed from the panel. You did an excellent job, panel one. Thank you so much. And ladies, you can sign up for their newsletters. So if you get on the First Pres website and you go to the Missions Conference tab and you click on that prayer guide, oftentimes you'll be able to find a link to register to receive their newsletters and things like that as well and get in contact with them. All right, so panel number 2, please. Anne, if you would come on up, and Leela. And let me see here. Who else am I forgetting? Hannah. All right, ladies, you've seen the first round go, so you're familiar. You're also going to have a first things first question, but yours is going to be slightly different. So your first things first question is, what is the first thing you drink in the morning? So you're going to follow the same little format. You're going to introduce yourself, introduce your ministry, and then tell us what the first thing you drink in the morning is. And Hannah, do you mind handing? Yep. Thank you. I'm not going to share mine.
So hello, my name is Ann Ingram, and my husband Jeff and I are church planters with TEAM, the Evangelical Alliance Mission. We do church planting in Germany. We work with the Evangelical Free Denomination of Germany, and we've been doing that for 33 years.
Will you explain to them real quick what the Evangelical Free Denomination is? Because that was helpful to me.
Okay, so So in Germany, you have 2 state churches. You have the Lutheran Church and the Catholic Church, and those are state-funded churches. Anything else is a free church. So whether you're Presbyterian, Methodist, you name it, you're a free church, and you have to support yourself. And so we chose, our mission is linked up with the German, it's a German denomination that's also here in the United States. In a broader section, you would know it as the Evangelical Free Denomination. And so we've been doing church planting with them now since 1999, and the last 13 years, or 11 now, we've been living in Dresden, Germany, so the eastern side of Germany. We happen to live in one of the most atheistic regions in the world. Incredibly, former East Germany is that one of those places. And we have 3 adult children, a 35-year-old son, a 33-year-old son, and a 31-year-old daughter. Our oldest and our youngest are now living back in the States, and our middle son is married a German, and so we have a German, also a little German-American granddaughter over there. My connection to First Pres, for some of you that don't know us, goes back a long way. If you've ever been in Letchford Hall, the Letchfords were my parents, Peter and Dorothy Letchford, and my dad would have turned 108 about a week ago. So that tells you how long. I think he was one of the original mission speakers here at First Pres, years ago. So that's a little bit about me. And so my dad was British, and they had lived actually back in England during my college years. My first drink of choice is a proper cup of tea in the morning. Heat the teapot, I do everything.
You do it properly. My favorite's tea too, but I'm embarrassed when I tell somebody who does
hardcore.
it properly.
Come to me, Amber. We'll do it right.
Okay, I will. Thank you. Tutoring. All right, Hannah.
All right, my name is Hannah. I'm married to Jonathan, and we have 2 little boys. Micah is 2.5, and Judah is 6 months. So we've got a lot going on day to day. We are on the global management team for a ministry called Faithful Witness, which you'll get to hear more about throughout the weekend. But in a nutshell, we send teams of multi-cultured, multi-skilled workers to unreached places around the world where people don't yet have access to the gospel. So we have currently 9 teams in different regions. 5 are in Africa, and 4 are in the Middle East and in different parts of Asia. And so Jonathan and I, we're based here in the U.S., but we get to be working every day to help support and equip the 70-plus workers that we have on the field around the world. So, Oh, and the first thing I put in my mouth in the morning is the question. Water. I'm in a competition with myself to drink like 100 ounces a day, so I only meet that goal if I start very early in the morning.
I am impressed. How many ounces do you get first thing?
Oh, like a cup, like 8 or something.
Okay,
Just
all right.
got to start early.
Okay, very good. Leela, am I pronouncing your name correctly?
Leela. Yes, Leela.
Okay.
Yes, my name's Leela, and I'm married to Joel Goldberg, or Yoel in Hebrew. And he was here last year for the missions conference, and they invited him back again, and he asked if I'd come with him. So Joel and I live in Israel. We live about 16 kilometers from Jerusalem in a little Messianic Jewish village called Yad Hashmona. I don't know if any of you have been there. Joel grew up in Israel. He and I met in Bible school in England many years ago, and I've been in Israel now for 28 years. He has a ministry. We have a ministry together, which serves as a local body in Israel, working with youth and soldiers. And we have about a staff of about 15 people at this point. And we run conferences, monthly conferences. We do pre-military discipleship programs. And I have 4 children. Abby's 30, Sean's 28. I have a 24-year-old Matan, and our youngest son Amiel is in the IDF. He's 19, and he's serving in the paratroopers. So, and my favorite thing to drink is also tea. I was born in Scotland, even though I sound like an American, and I like a good cup of Yorkshire in the morning. That's exactly what I'm drinking.
I'm coming to both of you then. We're having a tea party. Very good. Okay, well, let's get into a little bit deeper questions. So, Anne, in your experience as a church planter, since you're doing that often, what are a couple of the essential components for establishing a healthy church? And then how are those components that anybody can be involved in?
Okay, so I brought a little show and tell here. Soda, right? That's a soda. So in German, you can use the word soda, and that means where are you at right now, soda. And this would be my first thing for really being a part of a healthy church, is to every day with the Lord say, where am I? Where am I with you today? And not just with all the good emotions, not with the things that are working well, but when you get up in the morning, ich bin so da. That's where I'm at today, and this is how I'm starting my day. And to go through the days, like not just in the morning, but through the course of the day, there was a French monk that said, practicing the presence of God, practicing the presence of Christ. And so, soda, that's where I am in this moment today. And to have a healthy church, to have a healthy walk with Jesus, you just got to know in the course of the day, yeah, soda, that's where I'm at right now, and bring Jesus into those moments in the course of a day. So that's going to be always the first thing for any one of us. You are. We just need to rest in we're loved, we're special, God sees us, we're not in a competition with anybody else, Soda, I'm there. So next time you grab a drink, think, where am I? What am I at? And my second one is, and that we really, from the very beginning in our church plans, is who are the VIPs in our life? And for most of us, we think VIPs, we think stars. Do you have something Hollywood? Those are the VIPs in our world. But for us, our VIPs are very important people who don't know Jesus yet. And so who are the VIPs in your life? And if something's very important to you, you will make time and you will invest thought into cultivating that relationship. And that was already mentioned in our first panel here. But we really work, both Jeff and myself, as well as our folks. Sometimes you got to say maybe no to a church activity. That might sound like blasphemy, but if it means that you look at your schedule and you see, wow, I don't really have any time in my schedule for a VIP, then maybe you need to look at your schedule again and say, Lord, help me to see where can I work a VIP every week into my life and into my prayer life. So, stars and soda.
I love the visual and how they connect. Thank you. All right, Hannah, so your question has to do with your administrative role, right, with the ministry. And tell us how, so sometimes when we think about missions, we don't always think administration, but how important is administration? So important. So tell us a little bit about why and how you've seen that be an important part of what y'all are doing.
Yeah, so like I said, my husband and I are on the global management team for Faithful Witness, and so our role specifically is overseeing all of the communications efforts for the project, which is everything from, making videos, writing stories, managing the website, doing communications with current donors, potential donors, all of the communications needs that are necessary to send and then sustain teams on the field. And so what we've seen is, for every worker on the field to be able to be effective and to be healthy and well supported, they need a team of people behind them doing the logistics and helping them with the different needs that they have. And so we've been blessed to be able to come alongside and support through our roles on the management level. These, administrative roles vary, everything from, training and development to language learning coaches to financial support managers or people to help them raise support. Communications is a big one, like internal communications, communicating to churches and donors and communicating what work is being done and what needs there are. And just so many more different roles that kind of come together to create a support system that allows people to be effective, to be thriving in their countries of where they're living. So while it's not something that you probably think about on the daily of the people, at home helping support the people on the field, we've seen it be a crucial role to help people feel supported and to thrive where they're at.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love seeing how those skill sets that are behind the scenes that you don't necessarily recognize what's going on, how vital they are for that support. So thank you. Okay, Leila, will you explain a little bit? You mentioned that your 19-year-old is in the Israeli army. Am I saying that right? Okay.
Yes.
Talk about how that happens, what the policy is there in Israel for youth, and then we'll do your follow-up question.
Okay, in Israel, every young man and woman that's finished high school will serve on mandatory military service. So that's men and women. So generally, age 17, they'll be brought in for kind of it's the first draft, and then they actually will go into the military when they're 18 for 3 years, an average of 3 years. My son did a pre-military year program, so he just went in at age 19. And he's just, so it's a big thing in Israel. Like all the young people are involved in the military, and that's when we started the ministry. We mainly focused on the youth. And then we found that when we had a youth conference, we had the military people coming, and we realized, they're not in the same place, so we need to start something for the people in the military as well. So, it's a big part of our culture, and so many young people really don't start thinking about education until they're 22, further studies. So, and often they take time off after the military as well, so they kind of get started later in their education.
Okay, well, that's helpful to explain because as your question is what's been the greatest personal challenge in these last 1.5 years living in the instability of war in Israel. And go ahead.
Well, as most of you know, we've had a hard 1.5 years in Israel, and I was trying to think, how to best answer this question, and I think it's just been, for me, when I think personally, it's just been a season of real uncertainty. And it's hard to explain, but you can be 1 minute, cooking dinner, and then you get your phone will make this loud noise, and that means you need to go into your bomb shelter. And then my husband is, Joel, wears many hats, but he's also in charge of the security for our little village. So he'll lock me in the security room where you lock in, and then he'll go out, And we live near Jerusalem, so we've had less incidents like that. But I was also working for a while in our local hotel. We have a guest house, and so we basically, after October 7th, we brought in evacuees. So we had these little rooms, mainly for 2 people. We had 6, 8 people with their dog, that have left everything to come and live for months in a little hotel room. And I just think it's just been real a testing as well, because for me personally, but also for my children, that all I have 3 boys and 1 girl, so all the boys are in the reserves. So apart from Amiel, who's in the military. So my son's a tank commander, so he was in Gaza at some point, and my other son, Matan, is an ambulance driver, so he was on the borders of Gaza. And it's just one of these things where you say you have faith and you trust God, but when it comes to these situations, it's just really making a choice, and just understanding I can give in to this fear. I don't know how to explain to you the feeling after October 7th. I think we were just in absolute shock. It was just, I kind of think we live not far from the West Bank, so we were wondering, are people going to come across the borders? Are we going to, they were barricading the front of our village with big cement blocks, things like that at the beginning. This is like the first 2 weeks. And just in those moments, just, really, it's like, where's your faith? Lord, do I trust you? And I do trust you, and I know you're sovereign, and you're sovereign in my life, and you're sovereign in my kids' life, and I don't know what that means, because we have lost believing soldiers in Israel this year. And we've lost, in the last couple months, we lost a young man exactly Amiel's age. So it doesn't mean, we won't go through, loss, but we just have to, just trust in God. And I think that's where my faith has been tested. But I think at the same point, for these many, many years, we've had Netiva going now for 20 years, we've been training and discipling young people for such a time as this, for this time where we can be a beacon of light in a culture where there isn't a lot of hope, and people are asking a lot of questions. And so my sons are in the Army, and they just have amazing opportunities to share about their faith, because people are asking them, what do you believe? And the young people that come through our program, that we're training them to share the gospel, and people are looking for your reactions, people ask me, what are you doing here? Why would you be here in this situation? It gives me opportunities to share about the hope, but it's been a hard year and a half.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you for sharing that with us. And it's leading us well into our next time, which is prayer time around the tables, just because when I hear that and I think, wow, in the sense of what you're saying, that faith that that you've been communicating, believing, trusting, and then you're thrown into this situation which intensifies it so much, and to see the Lord support that faith himself, and then through the prayers of many believers, and y'all interacting in that prayer that way together. So we do want to take the rest of our time to spend praying for missionaries at our table, and we've got a good 15, 20 minutes really to do that. So Sean, do you want to give a little explanation?
Yeah, so I just wanted you to know that empty chair was supposed to be Samantha Roberts. She works with Campus Outreach Serve, and she's based out of Atlanta, but she travels all over to disciple and train CO staffers serving in other countries. A week or so ago, her sister got very sick. She's only 41, ended up in the hospital, ended up on life support, and died. And yesterday was the funeral. And at the funeral, her mother had a seizure. So please just keep Samantha in your prayers as you pray. And then if you're at a table that does not have a missionary, please just pull your chair up to one of them that does. And I think that's it. Thank you, Shirley Dorenzo, for cooking all the food. And before you leave, if you can stay past 1:30, if you don't have kids, then you're welcome to stay and talk. On your way out, there's trays or carts in the back if you want to just take your plates and silverware and trash and bring them to the back. That'd be great. Thank you.